Regulation number 391.
Maureen, Hullinger, Nevada Department of Wildlife. Yesterday, we workshopped Commission General Regulation 391, which is a temporary regulation. At that time, you didn't make any requests for any language change, so I'm just going to turn it over back to the Commission.
Very good. First, we'll have public comment. I think there's a bunch of cards on this, and then we'll bring it back to the Commission. Who stated number 18? Mr. Vice Chairman.
We have a lot of people that didn't put any number down. Anyone put anybody designate that didn't put a number down? They wanted to speak on this. Gil?
I think I put 18.
Yeah, Gil did. Yeah, go ahead.
For the record, Gil Yana, Carson Advisory Board. A lot of discussion, as I'm sure there was at a lot of boards. We've had a lot of discussion here. And trying to weigh the information that became available regarding the loss of funds to the department, loss of funds to various entities, primarily loss of funds to guides. Trying to take all that into perspective and into consideration, the Carson Advisory Board, wanted to say that we understand the plight, but we feel that the changes that were made that gave certain groups of non-resident hunters the two opportunities for the same tag, we basically felt that was unfair, particularly to resident hunters, and so we voted no on that. Thank you.
Who else do we have?
Paul Dixon.
For the record, Paul Dixon, Clark County Cab. Like Gil and his board, we had a fair amount of discussion on this topic, and I believe from the perspective of the residents down there, since most of them, we live in a very urban area, and the loss of 2 or 3 guided opportunities to a lot of the people who are residents down there doesn't seem to would have a big impact. And even though we had that discussion, I think it comes back to the salient point that Gil brought back, which was that a lot of people feel that people should not be given 2 opportunities for the same tag. And the only way that would change is if you had a resident guided draw and allowed tags to be pulled out and then do things. Then I think you wouldn't have people worried about things. But I think that there's not the appreciation from the larger metropolitan centers to the impact of losing things. And so, representing my public, their vote was to not change the regulation. Thank you.
We have Henry Krinka.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Henry Krinka. I'm president of the Nevada Outfitters and Guides Association. And I'd just like to refer you back to the letter from the Governor Gibbons, in which he asked the Commission Board to support the return of the original language to this bill. And Governor Gibbons was on the Assembly Resource Committee back in 1993 when we passed this bill. And at that time and still today, he didn't put it in, he didn't help us to get it into effect, that it was fair for everybody. But he did put it in so that it would make applying with the guide more attractive. As far as 2 bites of the apple, the resident does have more. Excuse me. There's depredation hunts the resident can put in for. There's the PIW, the Silver State now. It's got deal. So the resident has more than one opportunity also to put in for a tag. And is there any questions that I could answer?
Commissioners?
I'll bring them
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mitch,
Bazzetti.
Bazette,
Bazzetti.
Bazzetti? Oh, there's an I, I'm sorry.
That's fine. Mitch Pizzetti, member of the Nevada Outfitters and Guide Association. Mr. Chairman, thank you for giving us this opportunity. In Nevada, we are very fortunate enough to have our natural resource that us as guides and outfitters get to use. I mean, we're very privileged to have that opportunity. And if anyone says that they're unhappy with it, they should rethink what they're saying, because it's a natural resource that as guides and outfitters we're very fortunate to have. And we do appreciate that for sure. One cannot say that we haven't seen a significant loss in clients since the enactment in 2006 of this regulation. I mean, the charts yesterday clearly showed from system consultants that we've seen a 700-person decline in our applicants into the guided draw. So that's a significant loss to our industry. And I mean, just, you can see that. It's been a constant loss since the enactment. We've been going down in our numbers of applicants putting into the guided draw since the enactment of the 2006 regulation. The graphs yesterday showed that. We've been on a constant decline in our guided draw. We've seen a constant increase in the number of applicants putting into the draw. So everything's been on a steady increase, except our industry's been on a steady decline. So it's really had some effect on us. It may not be the significant effect to the Nevada Department of Wildlife or maybe system consultants, but it is really a large effect on our industry. We have lost a lot of money. You know, there's been numbers, we could talk numbers, $400,000 or $500,000 lost in revenue to the guide association, to the guide business. So it has been very substantial loss to the industry. And by this loss, it's not only the guide association and the guides that lose out, it's obviously rural America. A lot of my people that work for me as a guide live in rural Nevada. I employ them maybe a short time of the year, but they've come to rely on the opportunities that we offer for work. You know, we're not all in large urban areas or in the mining industry or things like that, so it hasn't had an effect there. I think the regulation 2006 was, was a knee-jerk reaction to the lawsuit brought in by Mr. Tallman at the time. It didn't take an effect that the hardworking, the ethical outfitters in the state of Nevada that that we're all part of, and I just think it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction, and I think that we've paid the price now long enough, and we'd really like to see maybe this return back to the original language. One must remember in my mind, and this is strictly mine, that the Nevada Outfitters and Guide Association is the voice for the non-residents of the United States, or that come to Nevada. We speak for them, a large part of it, maybe not solely, but we are a large part of their voice. And that's why I would really like to see this to go back to the original language. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
George Corner.
For the record, George Corner representing the Nevada Outfitters and Guides Association. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I did bring up one change. If we're going to adopt this temporary regulation, I brought out that it's going to again create a problem with bonus points. I think we need to insert a clarification that the bonus point that would be awarded to the unsuccessful applicants in this draw wouldn't be applied until after the main avoid problem we had before, the only place we really had any complaints. And at the Ely meeting, I pointed out that I really didn't want to get into a whole lot of discussion over statistics, but we're there and I want to revisit it this one last time. I can't comment on Chad Bliss, what he submitted, because we haven't been able to get a copy of that information. That what Maureen has submitted and what Don Sefton submitted, Don and Gil last night gave me the information on how Don came to his figures. You all have a copy of that. It's an email, and in a different email, Don points out that he's in Hawaii. Don points out that those figures are off the top of his head. And what I would point out that those figures are for 1 year. Don and Maureen are both right. Maureen gave you figures for 4 years. Don gave you figures for 1 year. That $15,000 is for 1 year. Don also used in that email a figure of 400 less applications. That's low. For the first year, it's not that low. The first year, 2007, there were 473 applications. Second year, we were minus 546. Third year, 731, we were minus 209. In 2010, $715 less. If you want to take the time to do the math, Don's figures are actually going to come out higher than what Maureen has presented you, but Maureen did a more accurate, I believe, compilation. I want to thank both Don and Maureen for what they have done to try to present information to you on the loss to the Department of Wildlife and conversely loss to the guides. I think we can all agree, the guides have lost a considerable amount of money. Paul pointed out 2 or 3 guided hunt opportunities. Numbers I presented to you for 2009, that's using the 715 figure and the 8-to-1 odds of drawing an application. That comes out to 180 guided hunt opportunities were lost. That's a significant figure, and I hope that's all the discussion we have to have on statistics. I know Don loves them, I use them, but it drives me crazy, and I'm sure a lot of you have the same opinion of them. Just a little bit on second bite of the apple. We already heard from our chair, our president, that the governor understood what the intent of the original law was, and it wasn't meant to be fair. There are numerous instances that can be pointed out in our, well, I say in Nevada Department of Wildlife and the Board of Wildlife Commissioners policy and regulation, but people are going to look at and say it's unfair. The second bite of the apple is one. I can show you hunters, sheep hunters especially. Commissioner Vogler pointed out that he's a sheep hunter, getting gray. I can refer you to numerous sheep hunters that are getting gray that have been putting in for years to draw a sheep tag to fill out their Grand Slam, that thought it was very unfair that one of the first Rocky Mountain Bighorn sheep tags made available in Nevada went to a 14-year-old boy who then killed a 183-point Bighorn sheep, which is a state record for a day. A lot of those hunters felt that was very unfair. I thought it was great. And former Commissioner Pete Morai at the Ely meeting pointed out that the bonus point system was unfair. Those people that pointed in for the first time can look at all those people with all the bonus points and say that's unfair. And you can go on and on. This wasn't meant to be fair. It was meant to support the guide industry and bring more non-resident hunters to Nevada to support not only the guide industry but the other economies, and the Department of Wildlife realizes the revenue also. And I'm sure I'm running short on time, so I'm going to, well, one more point on the revenue. Non-residents contribute 81% of the revenue realized from application, license, and tag fees. That's obviously the majority, even though they are far from being the majority of applications. There are many more residents apply than non-residents, but the non-residents contribute 81%, again, of the revenue realized from application, license, and tag fees. No questions. Well, I want to thank you all for your consideration and ask you to please support what we've asked.
That's all I have that's put on the card.
Daryl, didn't he have that?
Yeah.
Thank Daryl. He had it written in a different way. I said
Yeah, I didn't do it
391.
by number. Sorry, Commissioner.
Didn't,
Oh, see LCB 391.
okay.
Darrell Harwell with Washoe County Advisory Board. At our meeting, we had several discussion. We voted not to support the petition with one member abstaining. But the one comment that came out on our meeting is, why don't the non-residents have the opportunity for a PIW?
All right, is there anybody else? All right, let's go ahead here, and then Candido and Dave.
Rex Flowers speaking on behalf of myself. At the Wash Board, yes, we did vote against this with one dissenting vote. We would like to see maybe this go back, and in order to keep the fairness in play, see if we can reprogram so that after we have the non-resident draw and the main draw, then those individuals who didn't draw in either draw can be allowed to go to the PIW. As speaking on behalf of myself, even go into the remaining tag draw. Just take them out of the actual main draw. Let them apply for any other draw that's there. But let all non-residents have the same opportunity, the same one chance. I think if you look through your notes, you'll see that 7 of these county boards voted against this. Only 1 voted in behalf of it. Part of this situation, and I feel for the guides that their business is down. I think anybody in a tourist-oriented business understands this. I work in a tourist industry. We're off 20% within the hotel and restaurant business within the state of Nevada. So we know about the effects of a bad economy, and a lot of what they are experiencing is partially due, in fact, to that bad economy. Thank you.
Thanks. Candido, and then see if there's anybody else.
Yeah, Candido Mendy, Velco County CAB. We voted to support this unanimously. And let me step back and just say now, I'll speak for myself. Yeah, for a long time, I didn't agree with it either. But in looking at the economy that we've got across this nation and across our state, there's been a lot of changes made to try to help people. I mean, they're doing all kinds of weird things to try to help the economy and help people get through this. And so in this situation, they're not asking for something new, they're asking for something that they had before. And I really think in some of these smaller communities outside of where we're at, where the gold is, these guides are hurting. And I talked to one individual that said his his friends' numbers were down by 2/3. So, you know, some of these guides are really hurting. And so anything we can do to help them and not break any major laws, we're going back to something that was here before. Thank you.
All right, well building, and then back in the corner.
Mel Belding speaking for himself, Washoe County. I think I could support this letter that the guides have. I know when this first started, there was a big discussion amongst the residents that you know, it should be why is it just non-residents? With that aside, it's not adding any tags off of anything. But I do agree with what Mr. Dixon said about it does affect the smaller communities. And I agree with George that we have to look at something about that bonus point. I don't think because you put in for the guided non-resident tag, you should automatically get a bonus point to put in for the next draw. But I think we should support this letter. Thank you.
All right, we had one more back in the corner, and then we'll move right on. Yes, Glenn Bunch.
Glenn Bunch. I don't know if I'm speaking for myself or Mineral County or historian. I was pretty sure I was in that meeting, and it was done in the South. I was sitting back there trying to remember if it was in Mesquite or if it was in Boulder City. But if I remember right, the group, the Guide Association came to the department. The department doesn't ordinarily just say, well, we're going to make these changes and run with it. Back in those days, there was an idea brought in by a group of people or a board or someone and said, this is what we want. And in the discussion at that time, if my memory serves me right, what they were trying to provide was, if we do it this way, there is a more opportunity for more people to get tags. And so you either get it from me or you get it over there. Well, it didn't go that way because the people they found they lost that chance, so that's what hurt them. And they were in the meeting, the chairman at the time cautioned them, watch what you ask for. It may not work. They got what they wanted, and now it's not working. And so I have no choice, no problem with it going either way. It's just they come forward and ask for it and got it, and now it didn't work for them, and they can see it. And I think if those of us that have been around forever in 6 days will really sit down and try to remember that it come to us back then. The department didn't just come up with it; they put the language together, and it worked. Thank you.
You're not looking at me, are you?
I think there's only 2 of us in the room that's been here as long as everybody.
All right.
Chairman Ray?
Yes, and then we'll,
Can I go?
all right, let's close public hearing, and we'll come back to the commission on this. Go ahead, and then we'll go with Mr. Cavan, then Mr. Vogel.
I just wanted to make a disclosure. I am going to be accompanying a friend on a guided hunt this fall with one of the proponents of this action, so I think I'm a prudent person, and I'm going to go ahead and vote, but I want to make that disclosure.
And will not affect your decision.
Correct.
Pursuing. Mr. Vogler.
If I understand this, if the removal of the bonus point was taken off of the table to where the out-of-state folks could still participate in the guided draw and then the regular non-resident draw, that would solve the heartburn problem. Can we change that, ma'am, to where at this late date, or would we have to table it and come back to it?
I'd have to come back with language on the bonus point regulation to exclude the guided hunt from the antlered deer. I don't know if they'd want it to stand alone, or at least create language so that it's excluded for use in the draw. So, because it's a standard programming feature that if you earn a point in a particular draw and there's tags available in a subsequent draw for that category, if you apply, we're going to apply your point to that and have you utilize it as a client. So that's a standard programming feature. So we'd have to do something in language to make sure that that's plain, that we're going to be excluding that point use during the main draw.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think that would be a problem about bringing it back. The draw's not going to happen until next March. So we certainly have the September meeting if you so choose.
Let's go with Mr. Lent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I spent a lot of time and I reviewed this petition, and I reviewed the testimony, reviewed the petition by Henry Krinka, I think, and I reviewed 502-147, 502-4237, and I reviewed the transcripts of the legislature, and I reviewed the testimony by Wade Robinson, who's been on the White County Board for years. He did an excellent presentation against the petition, and his testimony was it was just a loophole in the law. And I reviewed a letter, one by Mike Mantelli from Gilroy, and the last sentence, this would certainly better my odds. I reviewed the petition of the Nevada Outfitters and Guides Association, and I'm sort of offended by it, and I'm going to read the parts. It said, the original intent of NRS 502-147 and allowing those applicants who are unsuccessful or rejected to also apply. That is not the intent of the legislation. It was not in any of the testimony, and the summary by the Guides Association says we have explained the original intent of the legislation and regulation, and I defy you to prove the intent. That was not the intent. And Wade Robinson said it was a loophole. It wasn't the intent of the legislation originally, and the cabs were against it 7-1, and I'm going to support the cabs on this issue. And a solution to this, I think, would be we pass the 48-hour law, and I think that we don't need an early guides draw now. We can put the guides in the main draw and only have one draw, and we don't need a special guides draw. It's costing money. We're going to save money. The results are available in 48 hours, so they'll have adequate time to notify their clients. And so the intent of this was never to give them a second chance in the draw, as the petition says. So I will not be supporting this. I'll be supporting the Cavs that's voted 7-1 against it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Capurro?
Thank you. I think there are two issues that I'd like to point out. Number one, if you look at it's seen very clearly in the bar charts and in some other things, and even in the comments that Rex Flowers gave, the downturn started in 2007. Unfortunately, that also coincides with the downturn of the entire economy. And so I think that has a big part to play in how people spend their discretionary money and what they perceive to be their primary interest in spending that money. I'm not sure that it has, in looking at the statistics, I don't think it's reduced the number of out-of-state applicants overall that much. But it has obviously reduced the number that are put in under the guide system, or the guide non-resident guided hunt deal. In looking at, and I think it's important for the record to show it, in looking at the minutes that were presented from Chad Bliss and from Corey Lytle, with similarly with Lincoln County, they touch on the same thing, and it goes to the issue of the points, bonus points. And let me read you an excerpt from their what they said. Mr. Bliss explained his reasons for not supporting revising the provisions governing eligibility for main draw, being the language provisions give an unsuccessful guide draw applicant the opportunity to receive a bonus point to be used in the general big game draw of the same year, giving the non-resident a greater chance to draw in the general big game draw. What they concluded and what they moved to recommend to the commission was, if the language change is accepted, in other words, the guide's petition is adopted, and the language should be changed in the language to provide that the bonus point is not given to the applicant until after the general big game draw, which would mean he couldn't use it until next year. That is, in essence, the same argument set forth by Corey Lytle. And I think at the very least, if you were to expect this commission to support the petition, that the guides would have to agree to that language. And as we've already heard, that would have to go back for redraft because it has to do with the issue of bonus points. Again, it's an issue of, I had a call from two different non-residents who said, in the past I have gone that route, and that's why I say that the economy has had an impact on it. I have gone through a guide to receive my tag in Nevada. I am not able to financially do that anymore. I still want to hunt in Nevada, so I'm going to go ahead and apply. But I'm at a disadvantage because under what they're saying here, I could have a second chance at a tag if I went through the guide that I wouldn't have if I didn't go through the guided draw tag situation. So I'm not comparing it to a second bite at the apple by residents. I'm saying that with respect to the non-resident, there's a disparity there in which the guy who's not using a guide, and it could be because of the economy, is only having the one shot, and they kind of resent the idea that somebody else would have two.
Mr. McBeth?
I'm not going to be supporting the petition, but I need to say that I think that the Nevada Guide and Outfitters Association has done a very good job of bringing this issue, and I do believe that there are impacts to the Guides Association, And I have, I can understand their concerns from the, economic standpoint, the impacts that it has on that industry. And when it comes to this issue, if you take away the bonus point issue, I'm right on the fence. And when I get that point, I usually look to my cabs, first my Clark County cab, and secondly to the cabs, in total. And when I get the message from my cabs, who are, basically the majority are public, and most of that public is sportsmen, and I'm a sportsman rep, and I follow my cabs. But I have to tell you, this bonus point issue really bothers me. I'm not going to talk about it in detail. It's been vetted very well here, and this bonus point issue really bothers me. And if a majority of the commission does approve this regulation change, I would request that it be conditioned on another regulation coming forth on the bonus point issue to eliminate that additional benefit, or as an alternative to delay the vote on this and bring them both together, and to make sure that bonus point issue is resolved, because that's foul. I just don't like that. Thank you.
I had something. Anybody else? Mr. Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got one question for Maureen. When the guided draw happens, are the bonus points in play for the guided draw?
Yes, they are.
So the one that has 10 bonus points has got a better shot than a guy that's got 1?
Correct. It's an antlered deer category, so
Okay.
wherever they've earned those antlered deer points are utilized in the guided draw also.
And then if they get drawed, their points disappear and
Correct.
start over?
Yes.
Okay. There's one other issue that I think a lot of people are confused about, and I hope I'm not, is that the second chance, so to speak, takes tags away from residents. It does not.
No.
Because it's the
It's all-
non-residents.
It's all non-resident quota.
Right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? This is a tough issue, and I find it being a tough issue because, the first thing I look at is some of the greatest proponents of hunting in the state of Nevada is the guides, and basically the guides come forth with something, and the first reaction is, how can we help? Then we get into the details on this, and, guides provide a service that's invaluable. There's a lot of people who would not come to the states. Many people within the state would not be able to hunt in Nevada without the services of the guides. So it's invaluable. And however, there are a few points here in this, and particularly a couple things. Mr. Corner and Mr. Pizzetti brought up the point that this is related to the Tallman lawsuit. I was there at those meetings. The Tallman lawsuit was never mentioned. It wasn't mentioned in any of the Eureka CAD meetings. They never brought it up in any of their materials that came out at the last meeting. And I went back and I asked a couple of members then, did I miss something? No, it had nothing to do with Tallman. It perhaps a time coincidence, and it wasn't even really that close to a time coincidence. So it really had nothing to do with that. It wasn't mentioned. It wasn't a factor in it. Also, I did go back, after the last meeting, reading the letter of the governor and the original intent. So I went back and fortunately found the transcripts of the original legislative meetings, and I happened to have the chance to speak with one of the legislators that was there, quoted in it, and there's nothing there that talks about, it's to give those tags. Because what the law says is what they wanted, to give those tags. And no matter how this goes, we're following that law, and that was the intent of the law. It was nothing about, it said nothing about 2 draws, draw this first, draw that first. I did not see anything even remotely related to a discussion of that. It was simply, we're going to give these tags, get some special tags, and that's great. That was the intent. And that's the law, and that's what we must follow. And I support helping out the guides. It's been a great boon to the state and to the guides. And I hope that this commission is in complete support of the Guides Association. This thing here, this particular petition, however, I hate to see it pitted as, well, you're supporting the guides or not. There's a lot of question of fairness. There's a lot of different points in it. And as was ably stated by Mr. Macbeth, I'm really on the fence in this as well. And as far as the economy aspect of it, I'm affected probably as much or more than most anybody that's any non-guide in the state by this. And make sure that doesn't, as a lawyer would say, will not allow me to, that will not affect my vote, being a prudent person. But I just need to bring those few points out. So I feel the pain on it, but is a fairness issue. Anybody else? We have Mr. Pearl.
Yes, sir. I spent 40 years as a lobbyist with the Nevada legislature. And the one thing I got pretty good at was counting votes. Given that, if you're prepared for a motion, I would move that this be postponed to the next agenda, and that in the meantime, that you address this issue of the bonus points in addition to this. Because I have a feeling that if a motion is made to either pass or fail this petition, that it's going to fail under the current circumstances. So that's where I am. I would move that we postpone it till next time and ask the parties to work with the staff relative to any changes.
I'd second that.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to table this matter to a future meeting. Is there any further discussion on that?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, on the motion.
I think probably the people involved, especially the guides, might even try to add a little language to it that would support them. A little better language, maybe. I don't know what it would be, but it needs to be reworked a little bit to ease the pain.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Amendments? Oh, we have one. Mr. Vogler.
Chairman Rain, I agree with this motion, and I'm going to vote for it because it's not something we have to get done by day after tomorrow. At last Tuesday night, once everything was drawn out on the blackboard, that this was not affecting the number of residents, that it was just one draw to another, and doggone it, this is probably the first time in history that there's ever been a loophole or a mistake made by a law that allowed them to get this bonus point. If we can get around that, I am more than reasonably sure White Pine County would have voted. In fact, I'm not sure where the information came that White Pine County voted against it unless last Tuesday night's discussion was thrown out the window, because they pretty well supported it. They didn't like the bonus point. There's no question about that. And I'm going to support this motion, and I think we can solve this just in the fact that there is so much misinformation out there floating around that we can get by this. I'm not supporting necessarily the out-of-state hunters. I'm insulted by the lawsuit that was brought that caused all this trouble, but here we are. Now, let's move forward. It's the guides, the small businessmen in our state that are being affected. There's no extra numbers for non-residents, anything else. It's just a little quirk that wasn't cleaned up properly at LCB, and so let's move on and let's support this motion and table it and come back with some better language and some compromise. Thank you.
All right, got a motion on the floor. Do we have anything else? Proceed to vote. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
All right, we have, did you get that, Suzanne?
Vice Chairman Lanfield, you
Yes, I'll be supporting the motion. Thank you. Let's move on.